welcome back to Serger Tip Clips. Today we are going to look at the 25mm hammer attachment for the Bernina L890. This attachment will create a perfect 1-inch hem on any type of project that you're working on. Its design is really clever, and you'll see exactly why it makes stitching a 1-inch hem so accurate. But before we go over to the machine or take a closer look at this, I want to give you a few guidelines for setting up your project and your materials. First of all, when you're ready to create your hem, you're going to want to trim your project edge 1 inch longer than you want for the desired final finish on that. You also may want to press a crease in it at that 1 inch mark as you're getting used to using the hammer. I think that for the first couple of times, pressing that 1 inch crease along the fabric edge will make it easy for you to guide the fabric more accurately. Also, if you're working on a knit or even a lightweight woven, think about whether you might want to add some fusible stay tape to that. I like the SSI knit stay tape that's 1 inch wide. It gives the fabric a nice amount of body, and it even though it doesn't add any bulk, it does give enough weight to the hem of a project or a garment to make it hang perfectly. So those are a few of the things that I might do ahead of time. Before we go to the machine, I want to show you the how and why the 25mm hammer works so nicely. You can see it is labeled 25mm, which is equal to 1 inch. This is the bed of the hammer. There's a shield on the top where we'll insert the fabric and allow it to curl around and underneath. And right here you see the metal has a bend in it, and that's what will stop your fabric at that 1 inch mark and give you a consistent 1 inch hem. So I'm going to insert a short piece while we're here, and believe me, it's easier to do this when it's on the machine, but I do want to show it to you in cross section. You can see I've inserted this piece, and here is my raw edge, and again it's resting right against that edge that stops it at that 1 inch mark. So now let's go over to the machine and see it in action. I'm sliding the hammer onto the accessory holder, and I'm going to give you a tip that I discovered. If you push it as far right as it will go and then snug up the screw, your hammer will be aligned perfectly for your needles to cover that raw edge of the hem. Now, speaking of the needles, I suggest using one of the stitches that you can select using your leftmost cover chain stitch needle. So you can either do a triple cover stitch or 4-thread cover stitch, whichever your brand or model labels it as, and that has the left, center, and right needles in. You can do a wide cover stitch with the left and right needles in, no center needle, or the narrow cover stitch with the left and center, and that is what I am going to suggest and use today. The reason that the left needle is important is because when the fabric is inserted, as you saw on the table shot, that edge is going to align perfectly with that needle. So I'm going to swing this out just a little bit. To insert the fabric easily, I have my hammer swung out, and I'm going to slide this in, and I do like to press a starter crease at that 1 inch mark because that gives me a nice visual guide. And you're also seeing something that you don't typically see me using in tip clips, and that's the free arm system on this machine. So I'm going to slide this in, and I never like to start or stop on a seam. I'm going to push this forward, and I think it might be a little bit too far forward, so I'm going to back it out just a little bit so that the toe of the foot doesn't bump into the hammer at all. Just right here, I think, should be good. And I'm going to slide this in, make sure that I'm a little bit past where that seam is. And I do like to make sure that the edge of that fold stays right against this metal curl, because that tells me that the fabric is going to remain smooth and right at that consistent 1-inch mark underneath, because basically you're stitching it blind. You're not seeing underneath because the fabric is right side up. So I think we're all set to go. And you'll see how to swing the fabric out from under the hemmer as we go around in this tube. So let me pull this forward. I'll put the needles down, or the presser foot down. And speaking of needle down, I do like to activate that feature. So if your machine has that, it's good, because if you need to stop in cover chain stitch mode, you'll eliminate or minimize the chances for a skip stitch when you stop and the needles are down in the fabric. So I do have that activated, because sometimes you do have to adjust something in the round as you go around. So let's get started. My stitch length is 3.8, which sounds long for a lighter weight cotton, but it should look fine. So let's get going on this. This is what I'm talking about. I'm just curling the fabric around because it is a tube, so I want to make sure that it's nice and smooth. Now, as I'm going around, I am also paying attention to where I started stitching. I've got a little ways more to go before I show you how to swing the fabric out. But I do need a few inches, and you'll see why. Okay, so here are my beginning stitches, and I'm still up here. But what I need to do at this point, in order to get the fabric out smoothly from the hemmer, I need a little bit of room so that it doesn't get hung up underneath. So I'm just going to swing this out and uncurl the fabric gently, move this out of the way. And because I've gone far enough, I think I'm going to be able to consistently maintain that 1-inch hem. And I want to make sure that my seams are nice and flat underneath. My thread is a pretty good match for my fabric, so you can't really see, but I am going to pay attention and make sure that my needles are going to align with those beginning stitches. I think we're going to be pretty good. And really, all you have to do is either meet those beginning stitches or go one over. Now I'm going to bring my needles up and use my locking fork, come under, pull my needle threads forward, cut those, cut my thread, and I've got a really, really nice hem. I'm going to just give this a press, and then I'll show it to you. I've got the whole hem pressed, and you can see how perfectly the raw edge is covered with that narrow cover stitch for the 1-inch hem. So I hope you'll try it out and find that it's just as helpful as I do, and I just love it and think it's a fantastic accessory to have in my accessory case. Thanks for joining me today. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below and I'll get back to you quickly with an answer. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, I hope you do. Have a great day. Happy sewing and serging.